Hey, we've got a response from the CCO and the CEO about vehicles, roadmap, the Illuminate, crossovers, and so much more. There's a lot of news to go over in today's video that we'll be going over together. If you'd like to support the channel, please hit the like button below at any point and subscribe with notifications on. Let's start with the news about vehicles. There's a website called invin.co.kr that interviewed CCO Pilistad and CEO Georgiani. First and foremost, before we continue with the video, I want to let you know that the website here is in Korean, so I had to use Google to translate the site to English. There might be a few rough sentences due to the translation, and they might not make much sense, but that's due to the translator. With that being said, let's go ahead and see what their responses are to the questions that were asked. One of the questions that was asked was about vehicles, and if Arrowhead could tell the interviewer anything about it. The answer in response was a bit comical at first. They talked about Helldivers not being old enough to drive, and how it will cost 50,000 credits, but then Pilistad responded with this. On a more serious note, vehicle updates are in the plans. It will be added soon, but I don't think I can go into more detail than that. There's been a lot of questioning surrounding vehicles from the community, and even in the comments. I've seen all of you guys ask whether or not vehicles are really coming to the game. It's still on Arrowhead's radar. They for sure want to release them at some point, but when will it happen? We don't know for sure. The good news is that it's still planned, we just have to wait for them to release it at the right time. Sadly, as you can see, Pilistad cannot go into details about it. However, I'm sure we'll see vehicles eventually down the road. The CEO, Shams Georgiani, continued on by responding about how a lot of the updates that people are expecting are on their roadmaps. And he also brought up Chaos Divers. The response can be seen here when Shams Georgiani replied with this. The updates that many people are hoping for are probably already on our roadmap. It's just not happening right now. We've been looking at the community every day since our fiasco, and we're considering anything that's not too outrageous. I think a lot of people at the time were frustrated with us not communicating, so they turned into Chaos Divers. Then Pilistad, the CCO, said this right after Georgiani. We're thinking about how to incorporate these Chaos Divers into the game now. Interesting, they're thinking about incorporating Chaos Divers into the game. Perhaps the last Warbond was a hint about that, and I wonder what they could possibly mean by bringing the Chaos Divers into the game. I was thinking lore, but perhaps another faction in the future to fight? That would be pretty cool. Yet as of right now, we have no clue what this could mean. Moving along, the interviewer asked about the new progression system and brought up how players have already acquired all the ship upgrades and equipment. Shams' response was intriguing. I'm not entirely sure what he meant by more features being activated next week. Maybe he's referring to the tactical actions. Nonetheless, this is what he had to say in response. We already knew that there were a lot of gamers who had completed all the progress in April or May. We added one more difficulty level and one more ship module. But as I said before, we were more focused on fixing the problems at that point than on something new. At this point, we are focusing on creating content that gamers can immerse themselves in. As of today, November 14th, the Democratic Space Station DSS has been activated, and gamers with a lot of resources can invest their resources. More features will be activated next week. Starting today, gamers can vote to choose what they want and what they will receive by voting. We will continue to add more player participatory content like this in the future. With this response here, it seems they're more focused on fixing problems instead of adding new ship upgrades. This could be the reason as to why we haven't seen any new ship upgrades, mainly due to the fact they want to solve all the issues surrounding the game at the current moment. Not only that, but he brought up that more features will be activated next week. He also mentioned as of today, which at the time was November 14th, so for sure he was referring to the new tactical actions we have seen in the game already. Sadly, it doesn't seem like we're going to receive anything new this week, since what he's referring to are the planetary bombardment, Eagle Storm, and the orbital blockade, all of which we have already seen thus far. Perhaps they are introducing 3 more things for the Democracy Space Station, or maybe for something else, because right here towards the very end of the interview he said this. Just one last thing to add, there are 3 big ones coming soon. And the interviewer said 3 ? And he said, right, 3. I can't tell you right now, but 3. That I am looking forward to. We know tomorrow is going to be a Tuesday. Typically they update the game on Tuesdays, so we should expect something either tomorrow, maybe next week, sometime soon. Now Shams continued and finished his sentence by writing, in addition to this, we are also planning crossover collaborations with other IPs. We don't want to do too many crossovers, but we are considering appropriate collaborations that fit the game's atmosphere. For example, collaborating with Power Rangers would be difficult in terms of concept, but maybe we could do something like Black Ranger. I will say I wasn't expecting Power Rangers to be on the list of collaborations, yet I'm not against it. I haven't seen the Power Rangers since I was a kid, so that would be fascinating and would be an incredible collaboration. Can you imagine a Power Ranger armor set? Seems like a cool idea, and I'm interested in whether or not they're serious and dead set on doing something like that. Would you all be down for a Power Ranger crossover in Helldivers 2, or would you prefer something else? Let me know in the comments. The next question was about crossovers and what he meant by collaborating with other IPs. This time, CCO Thoughts answered with this. Nothing has been decided yet. We are also considering IPs like Warhammer. I think we all can agree that Warhammer would be an incredible crossover into the Helldivers 2 universe. It's something I'd love to see. But I'm sure there's going to be a lot of conversation that will have to go on with Games Workshop because they take their lore seriously. And I'd imagine they'll also take this seriously when it comes down to crossovers. Now, not only did Thoughts respond to that question, the CEO Shams Georgiana responded with this. Alien seems like a pretty good theme. What do you think? What would be good? The interviewer brought up StarCraft and Starship Troopers. Then Shams responded back with this. Bringing in the Zerg from StarCraft would be good. And bringing in Terran marine weapons would be good too, something like a Gauss rifle. Well, what do you all think about those crossovers? Personally, Alien seems like an insane crossover that I'd love to see happen. The recent Alien movie that was released this year was incredible, so that would get me pumped up to see a crossover like that. However, StarCraft and Starship Troopers isn't bad either. It seems like Arrowhead has a lot of options to choose from when it comes down to crossovers or collaborations. Continuing forward, the interviewer brought up the Destroyer. Shams responded that it would be nice to change the Destroyer's skin, however it's important that it fits perfectly with Helldivers 2. The reply can be seen here, and he wrote, "It would be nice to change the Destroyer's skin or the Pelican skin to a dropship, whatever it is. The important thing is that it fits the game called Helldivers. It has to be an IP that players are familiar with, but it shouldn't interfere with the fantasy of Helldivers, so I think it's important to choose the right IP. The armor and weapons of StarCraft are really cool, but we have to think about whether they fit in a Blizzard game or Helldivers. I don't believe they've ever discussed changing the Super Destroyer's skin before. Perhaps soon we'll be able to change the colors. We know that they have plans to allow us to change the colors on the armors at some point, but there hasn't been any news on that since 2 months ago when Thoughts responded to a player on the Helldivers 2 Discord. If I hear any news about this, I'll be sure to update you all on that once there's information publicly available. Anyway, CCO Thoughts responded to the question, basically implying that they've got to be careful, and he wouldn't want to equip a skin that would ruin the game's experience for his teammates. Personally, I don't believe that's a big deal, considering I've never cared about what my teammates are wearing in terms of skins, and that goes for just about every game I've ever played. If I see a player with a skin I don't necessarily like, I don't think that ruins the experience for me at all, I really don't. So I think that's a strange response, but again, it could be just a rough translation. Lastly, the CEO Shams Georgiani added that the Arrowhead team discussed a cosmetic system for map skins, where us players that have it equipped would be the only ones to see it. For example, he wrote this in response. We've discussed a cosmetic system in the past where only what the gamer sees changes. For example, in the case of Dota 2, when applying a map skin, the user's map will appear to have changed, but others will see it as the default map. However, this was rejected because it could cause confusion during the game. The terrain or objects that one person is talking about may appear different to another person. In any case, even if there's a crossover, it seems the most of it will be applied to armor or weapons, as long as it does not interfere with the gamer's gaming experience. I think this is one crazy idea that could actually work well, but sadly it won't happen since it was rejected. The next question asked is about Arrowhead developers and how they feel about the balances so far. The CCO Mr. Thoughts' response can be seen here, and he wrote this. Compared to before, we are definitely satisfied and happy. One of our team's coders, a guy named Linus, we call him Minus, always brings a lot of mind stratagems to every game. So there's a developer named Linus that created the landmine stratagems in Helldivers 2. Now that's cool. Another question that was asked was about the struggles and what was the most difficult challenge with the live service game. Pilstead wrote this in response. It was not easy to clearly define each person's role during the production stage. Before Helldivers 2, Arrowhead was a fairly small organization, so the development process was quite free. However, as the organization grew, the most difficult thing was the process of coordinating it. Previously, the attention paid to our games was different than it is now, so there were cases where problems were discovered several months after the game was released, and even if the process of handling them wasn't somewhat delayed, it was not a big problem. However, now we have to work with a high level of completion as the standard from the beginning, and the development period of the game itself has also become longer. It is not simply a problem in the game development process, but the process of changing everything to achieve this level of weight was a big challenge in itself. The CCO, Mr. Plistad, went on to explain an analogy that it's essentially like cooking at home for themselves to now cooking for 10,000 people at a restaurant. He also went on to talk about the Warbond process, how it was difficult to make one in 4 weeks, so they now extended it out to 6 weeks instead. The answer can be seen here, and he said, however, as the game grew larger than we thought and there were more things to take care of, we realized that it wasn't possible to make it in 4 weeks, so we increased the interval to 6 weeks, but even in 6 weeks is not perfect. If we took more time or had more people, the results would be better, but hiring people is also a task. It appears that even at 6 weeks, it's not entirely perfect for them, so I wonder if they're planning on increasing the time to create the next few Warbonds to ensure they end up better. He also brought up how hiring people is also a task. I'm guessing they're trying to expand their team, but that right there might be difficult for them to do so. We know recently they hired a new game master, and we should see the new update arriving soon to update the Galactic War map. Check out my previous videos or one of my previous videos about that. Lastly, Plistad mentioned that they're paying more attention to what the community has to say. The proof can be seen here where he wrote this. At the same time, we are also paying more attention to the process of listening to the community. In fact, this is the most important thing. As I mentioned in the lecture, we realized through the ups and downs of 10 months that we need to focus on the community and listen to the gamers. Before we started the 60-day update until the August update, we really didn't know. We didn't know why the game was going in a bad direction, and we were stuck in the thought that we were lost now. It's good to see that the Arrowhead team is back on track, yet recently we know how the community felt about the Democracy Space Station, so perhaps they'll shift the focus on that now, given the negative feedback surrounding it. Now to finish up the video, the interviewer asked about the balanced philosophy, and Plistad explained it by writing this. One of our development philosophies that we've had for a long time, a game for everyone is not a game for anyone. When we were going through a period of stagnation, we forgot this philosophy and tried to balance mechanically, but now we have a similar thoughts in terms of balance. For example, there are many types of players in Helldivers 2. In the case of Shams, he is closer to the so-called dad diver who plays the game a little more lightly, and in my case, he is closer to the core gamer. The same goes for developers. When looking at the balance of a weapon, each gamer and developer can have different perspectives. Here we had to decide who we should focus on for this balance. And the current standard is set at the extent to which all the weapons can be used happily in any situation. To put it more simply, we are trying to make all weapons feel somewhat OP. I think they've done exactly just that. I mean, all the weapons feel pretty good. I don't think I've had any complaints so far, so if you guys have any thoughts about anything we've talked about so far in today's video, let me know your thoughts, your comments, and all that down below in the comments section. Also, I did mention that they talked about the Illuminate, but it wasn't anything too crazy. They just kind of denied that the Illuminate are coming back, even though we all know they're going to be arriving soon. But yeah, you can see it in this screenshot here. I would love to know your thoughts about everything we've talked about, so yeah, let me know your thoughts. As always, you know I like to go over your suggested loadouts in the comments below to give you a shout out, basically. If you've already posted a loadout previously and I didn't pick it, then please post it again in this video's comment and I might select it. Today we're looking at a loadout from a commenter named Little VR Content 7237 who posted this setup for the automatons. We've got the primary Liberator Penetrator for basic bots, Devastators, and even shielded Devastators if you can shoot directly at their skulls to one-tap them. The secondary is the Senator for dealing with Rocket Striders and Hulks. If you aim directly at the Hulk, you can actually take it out with 4 shots. Not only that, but we've also got to talk about the grenades because we've got the impact grenades for groups of enemies that are piled up together. For stratagems, we're using the Eagle airstrike for groups of enemies, precision strike for Hulks, fabricators, and pretty much all sorts of bot types. The recoilless rifle is next on the list, effective against Hulks, fabricators, gunships, dropships, and good for everything in between. Lastly, we have the machine gun sentry, which is effective against basic bots and devastators, although Hulks will destroy it fairly quickly. Overall, not a bad loadout. I would consider swapping the machine gun sentry for an anti-tank sentry like the rocket sentry. I'll give this setup a 4.7 out of 5 general brash stars. With all that out of the way, this is your Helldivers 2 news. If you guys would like to be featured at the end of the video, all you have to do is comment down below, and you might just get featured if you have enough upvotes. The first top comment is by Ultimate T728. As a Helldiver that still played through all the hate nerfs, I really want to see this game succeed. It is 100% game of the year, and it upsets me to see the hate on the game. However, it's the own dev's fault at this point for, one, again, not playtesting their own game that much. Yeah, for sure, you're not wrong there. That's an absolute valid point. It's a great game, it should be game of the year, but there are some problems when it comes down to testing their own game, and hopefully they figure that one out. The second comment is by YTYT2245, and this one is hilarious. I love your comments, by the way. You wrote, "Fun fact, you don't have to wait a week to get the orbital bombardment from the DSS. Just walk off the map for 10 seconds. Basically, you're not wrong, because when you walk off the map, it does the same effect as the orbital bombardment, right? Last but not least, we have Melissa Rainstorms 2588. Both the attack and defense buffs should be passives that are active at all times, so it's a major asset wherever it's parked. With dozens of planets under attack at any given time, having one DSS with permanent passives isn't game-breaking at all. Who knows? They might just add that. They might make it so that the passives are active at all times, because as you know, they are listening to the community, and we might just hear some word about that, so possibly that could be a feature. So those right there are the top 3 comments. Thank you guys again for supporting the channel. If you can, give this video a like, share it around, share it with all your buds, and yeah, hope you guys have enjoyed it. I appreciate all the support from you guys, and if you haven't subscribed, do it now. I know a lot of you are not subscribed just yet, and I will continue to say it at the end until you are subscribed. So click that red button. It's completely free. You're not going to be charged. And yeah, I hope you guys have a solid day, and I'll see you all in the next one.